He only asked me to stay a little longer, just to talk, just to sit beside him for a while. But the moment my son Ethan looked at me, with those eyes full of quiet ache of something unspoken, I knew this night would not be like the others. What happened next would change how I saw him and how I saw myself. Before I begin, tell me, where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments. Let's see where this story finds a heartbeat tonight. Now let me tell you what really happened that evening. It was one of those strange, still nights, the kind that hangs in the air like a held breath. No ticking clock, no buzzing phone, no barking dog next door. Just the low hum of the old heater and the gentle tap of rain against the windows like a forgotten lullaby. I sat in the living room, nursing a half-cold cup of tea, pretending to watch an old black and white film I'd seen so many times I didn't need to follow the plot. I knew how it ended. Lately, that's how most things felt, predictable, dimmed at the edges, like memories left out in the sun. Then I heard him. "Mom?" His voice didn't carry like it usually did. It wasn't loud, it was soft, tentative. I turned my head, not answering immediately. "Yeah, can you stay in my room for a bit?" The question caught me off guard. Ethan hadn't asked for something like that in years. He was 30 now, living at home again for a while since the divorce. And though we were close, there was a wall between us, an invisible partition made up of all the things we'd never said since he moved back. That's the way it goes with grown children. They love you, but they start drawing lines, creating distance they think they need. But his voice tonight, it paused me. I set my cup down and walked slowly down the hall, passing the old family photos still pinned along the wall. One of him missing his front teeth. Another in that giant red sweater he wore for 3 winters straight. I knocked more out of habit than necessity. The door creaked as I pushed it open. Ethan sat on the edge of his bed, elbows resting on his knees, his eyes cast downward, like he'd misplaced a part of himself. He looked tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the kind that settles into your bones when you've carried too much for too long. "You okay?" I asked gently. He glanced up at me, and in that fleeting look, I saw it, something raw, something breaking the surface. "Just stay with me for a bit," he murmured. "I don't want to be alone right now." I nodded and sat beside him. The bed dipped beneath our weight. The rain carried on outside, steady and soft like a heartbeat. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. We sat close, but not quite touching. The kind of closeness that carries caution, two people afraid to say too much, or maybe just afraid to say the wrong thing. "I had a dream last night," he said eventually. "What kind of dream?" I asked. He hesitated. "You were in it." I smiled lightly. "That doesn't surprise me. I haunt you even in your sleep, don't I?" But he didn't smile back. "It felt real," he said. "Like we were talking about things we never talk about. Things I've always wanted to say." I looked at him. Really looked. His jaw was clenched, his hands restless. And suddenly, I understood this wasn't about a dream. This was about 1,000 conversations he'd never started. 1,000 words he'd never released. "Ethan," I said softly, "you can talk to me, whatever it is." He inhaled deeply, like he was bracing for impact. Do you ever feel like you missed something, like life veered off course, and you never got back to where you were supposed to be? The question struck me, not because it was unfamiliar, but because it was mine too. My silent truth mirrored in his voice. All the time I whispered, he looked at me, really looked for the first time in what felt like years. I think that's what's been eating at me, he admitted. I don't know who I am anymore, or what I'm supposed to be. And sometimes being near you is the only thing that feels real. The room grew heavier, not with sorrow, but with something significant, something unfolding between us, raw and new and unexpected. I reached out and rested my hand on his. He didn't pull away. Instead, he turned his palm upward and laced his fingers loosely with mine. A quiet understanding passed between us. A tether. It's okay to feel lost, I said. You don't need to have all the answers yet. He stared down at our hands. I didn't expect to feel this close to you again. Not like when I was a kid. It's different now. And I don't know what to do with that. His words danced along a ledge close to something deeper, something unnamed, something perhaps neither of us were ready to confront. But I didn't pull away. I didn't let the moment dissolve. Instead, I stayed. I let the silence say what words couldn't. I let the rain speak for us both. Because sometimes love changes shape. Sometimes closeness reinvents itself. And that night, as we sat side by side, his fingers in mine and his head slowly tipping onto my shoulder, I understood this was a new kind of closeness. One we didn't yet have language for, but one we both needed. And I wasn't ready for what that meant. Not yet, but I stayed. The next morning, sunlight slipped softly through the half-drawn curtains, carving golden ribbons across the wooden floor. It reached out like gentle fingers, stretching toward the bed, as if trying to wake us with kindness. But I was already awake. I hadn't slept much at all. Ethan still lay beside me, fully clothed, on top of the covers, one arm draped over his stomach in sleep. There was a stillness to his face, a tenderness I hadn't seen in months, perhaps even years. He looked younger somehow, as if some hidden burden had momentarily let go during the night. I watched him quietly, my heart tangled in memory. I saw the little boy. He once was the one who used to slip into my bed after bad dreams, the one who would clutch my hand tightly until his storm passed. And now, here we were, older, changed. But something about last night had stirred something ancient and tender between us, something that felt too profound to ignore. I eased myself out of bed with care, not wanting to wake him. My body, slower now, creaked in quiet protest, a small reminder that I was no longer 30. I made my way to the kitchen and started a new pot of coffee. Leaning against the counter, arms folded, I tried to collect my thoughts, but they came in fragments, like leaves caught in a breeze. What had last night truly meant? Was it just comfort? A brief collision of vulnerability between a mother and her grown son? Or was there something deeper beneath it all? Something neither of us had dared to name. The scent of brewing coffee filled the space, warm and grounding. I poured 2 mugs and paused, watching the steam curl upward, dancing in the light like a spirit unsure of where to land. Then I heard the soft sound of footsteps. Ethan. "Morning," he said quietly, his voice still heavy with sleep. "Morning," I replied, handing him one of the mugs. "I figured you'd need this." Our fingers brushed for a second, just a second, but that was enough to awaken something again. A flicker of energy. Not uncomfortable, but undeniable. Like standing near a door that you're not sure you're supposed to open. We sat at the little table by the window, the one with the lopsided legs, and a view of the neighbors' tangled rose bushes. Ethan took a sip and held the mug between both hands, like he was steadying himself. "Did I make you uncomfortable last night?" he asked, his eyes fixed on the steam. I looked up surprised. "No." "Did I seem like I was—" He shook his head. "No, I've been thinking about it. Everything I said." "Me too," I admitted. He looked away for a moment, then back at me, steadily this time. "It wasn't just the divorce that messed me up," he said. "I think I've been carrying stuff for years. Loneliness, doubt, confusion. I just never said it out loud. You did last night." "Yeah." He gave a small laugh, half joy, half disbelief. It felt like the only time I could. "You can always say what you're feeling, Ethan. You're not a boy anymore. You don't have to hide from me." He looked at me, really looked, and his gaze lingered. Not inappropriate, not strange, but intense searching. Different. "It's more than feeling lost," he said. "It's how safe I feel around you. How different it feels to be this close to someone." Without pretending, my chest ached. Not with pain, but with something older, something bittersweet. I wanted to reach across the table to hold his hand, but something told me to wait, to let this moment breathe. "When I was next to you last night," he continued, "it didn't feel like I was just lying beside my mom. It felt like I was with someone who saw me, all of me, and didn't flinch." His words fell like snow, soft, but heavy, impossible to ignore. "I do see you," I whispered. "And not just as my son." His eyes searched mine. "Then what do you see?" The question left me momentarily breathless. It was too big, too layered, too fragile to answer without care. I looked down at my hands, tracing the rim of the mug. "I see a man who's walked through pain," I said slowly. "A man who's trying to find himself. A man who deserves love and softness and safety. Maybe more than he ever believed he could have." When I looked up again, his expression had softened, like something inside him had finally exhaled. "You make me feel like I'm not broken," he said. "Because you're not," I whispered. We sat in silence. The kind that hangs like a held breath. The kind that makes you feel every beat of your heart. "Would it be okay if we talked again tonight?" he asked quietly. "Maybe stayed up a little later. I don't want last night to be the last time." My voice was barely a breath. "Yes, I'd like that." We didn't touch. We didn't cross any lines. But we stood close to them, hovering on the edge of something unnamed, yet mutual. Something honest. That night had cracked something open. It carved a space where we could speak from the marrow, where vulnerability didn't feel like weakness, and somehow I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Not even close. The day moved slowly, like thick honey sliding from a spoon. I folded laundry, sorted through bills, watered the peace lily in the kitchen window. But my mind kept drifting to Ethan, to the way he'd looked at me over coffee, to the weight of his voice, to that unmistakable feeling that something between us had shifted, rebalanced. I told myself it was maternal, just a deepening of trust. That's what any devoted mother would feel, right? But then there was this other part of me, a part that had been quiet for a very long time, the part that once wanted to be more than just needed, the part that remembered what it meant to feel alive. That part stirred again, and it scared me. That evening after dinner, the house fell into one of those hushed silences, thick, familiar, and oddly comforting. The kind only interrupted by the clink of dishes in the sink, or the low hum of the refrigerator, humming behind closed thoughts. Ethan had offered to do the dishes, but I waved him off gently. I needed a moment, a few quiet minutes to breathe and be alone with the thoughts that had been churning since morning. As I wiped down the counter, I saw him pass by in the hallway. He slowed at the archway, hesitating like he had something caught between thought and speech. I looked up. "You heading to bed?" I asked softly. "I was gonna sit in my room for a bit," he replied. Then after a beat, "Unless," I waited hard, already ahead of me. "Unless what?" "Unless you wanted to come with me." Like last night, my chest tightened, not from fear, but from something gentler and heavier. Anticipation, curiosity. That quiet, blooming warmth you feel when something unknown is about to unfold. I nodded. "Let me finish up here." 10 minutes later, I stepped into his room again. But it didn't feel like the same space as the night before. Nothing physical had changed. Same bedding, same lamp, same walls, but we had changed. And that change hung in the air like electricity before a storm, quiet and thick with possibility. He was sitting on the floor this time, back against the bed, a pillow tucked behind him. The bedside lamp cast a honeyed glow across the room, softening everything, making it all feel suspended in a dream. "I didn't want to lie down yet," he said as I entered. "Didn't want to fall asleep too soon." I smiled. "We can just talk." He nodded, then gently patted the space beside him. I sank down, sitting cross-legged, our knees brushing. It felt like we were kids again, sharing ghost stories at a makeshift campfire. Only this time the fire was internal, glowing quiet, burning slow between us. "I've been thinking about what you said this morning," he began. "About how you see me. Not just as your son." I glanced at him. He ran a hand through his hair, searching for steadiness. It felt good to hear, he said. But also confusing. "I keep wondering why it feels so right being close to you like this. I thought it was loneliness. But it's not that simple." "I don't think it is either," I'd replied, keeping my voice calm, even as my heart stumbled a bit. He shifted toward me, his eyes more open now. "There's something about being near you. It settles me." I breathe easier, like something heavy lifts. I didn't answer immediately. I wasn't sure I could not without breaking the spell. And I know most people would probably think This kind of closeness is strange, he went on. But I don't care. I care about how I feel when I'm with you. He paused, watching me carefully. I could feel the tension in the air, gentle but unmistakable. What he needed wasn't permission to cross a line. He needed permission to simply feel what he was feeling, to know that longing for connection, even in unexpected places, wasn't a crime. I reached out and placed a hand on his arm, fingers light but steady. You don't have to explain it to me, Ethan. I felt it too. I just didn't know how to say it. His expression softened, like someone being told they were finally safe. So it's not just in my head. No, I whispered. It's real, and it's honest, and maybe that's all it needs to be right now. He exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that breath all day. Then gently, he shifted a little closer. Not much, just enough for our shoulders to touch. I didn't move away. His warmth pressed into mine. And together, we sat like that for a while. The light flickered slightly. The house outside our silence didn't intrude. Then he asked something that stole my breath. Can I put my head in your lap? Just for a little while. 1,000 thoughts bloomed and tangled behind my eyes. But my voice came without hesitation. Yes, you can. He moved with such care, laying himself down gently, head resting against my thighs, his body curling slightly toward the wall, like he was folding into something sacred. I placed a hand on his hair, my fingers brushing softly through it, like I used to do when he was small. But this time, it wasn't a mother rocking a child to sleep. It was different, older, quieter. A kind of reverence. He closed his eyes. My hand moved slowly, rhythmically. And for a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. There was only this room, only the hush between our breaths, only two people trying to heal in each other's presence. Thank you, he whispered, for what I asked gently, for letting me be close to you, for not pulling away. My throat tightened. I'm not going anywhere, I said. Not tonight, and I meant it. Whatever this was, whatever we were discovering, it didn't feel wrong. It felt deeply human, fragile, rare. And as Ethan lay beside me, breathing slow and steady, I knew this wasn't an ending. It was the beginning. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Maybe an hour, maybe 3. Time unraveled around us, like threads slipping from a spool. His head rested in my lap, my fingers still gliding through his hair. There were no words to name what passed between us, and maybe that was okay. It didn't need a name. It wasn't just about being mother and son anymore, not in the way the world demanded it be. It was two souls, worn down by years, finding a soft place to land, finding stillness, finding each other. When Ethan eventually opened his eyes, he looked up at me, not like someone who had just slept, but like someone who had just woken up. He blinked slowly, then smiled just slightly. I didn't mean to fall asleep, he murmured. I smiled back, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. You needed it. You've been carrying too much. He shifted a little, turning on his side so he could look up more easily. His gaze held mine, unblinking. I never thought I'd feel this close to anyone again. I thought that kind of connection was gone for me. You don't have to think that anymore, I said softly. His expression changed, Not with drama, but with gravity. Something subtle, but undeniable. A knowing. The tension in Ethan's eyes softened the sharp edges of his guarded stare, fading like mist under morning sun. His lips parted slightly on the verge of a sentence he didn't yet know how to form. "What are we doing, Mom?" he asked, voice barely a breath, like he was afraid it would vanish if spoken too loud. I inhaled deeply. The air between us had changed, warmer, heavier, not with discomfort, but with an unspoken tenderness. "We're healing," I said. "We're finding a kind of comfort, something real, something worth holding on to." His hand lifted, hesitant and trembling, then settled gently on my arm. "It's more than that for me," he whispered. "I know," I replied, voice catching on the truth. We didn't move. There was no rush to define what this was, only the hush of shared presence, of silent understanding. And the silence, it wasn't empty. It was thick with meaning, speaking in a language only our hearts seemed to know. Eventually Ethan sat up, but his hand never left my arm. The closeness lingered, reshaped now by clarity. "I don't want to lose this," he said softly. "Whatever this is, you won't," I answered. "We don't need to rush to explain it. We just need to honor it." He nodded slowly. His eyes dropped to our hands, now gently intertwined his thumb, brushing mine in small, quiet circles. "Do you ever think that maybe love doesn't look the way we were told it would?" he asked. I didn't hesitate. All the time, we sat there in the hush of the room, with the lamplight casting soft golden hues and stretched shadows that seemed to embrace us. Even the house felt still, as if it too was listening, bearing witness to something fragile and unscripted. "I used to think I had to go out there to find myself," Ethan said, motioning vaguely toward the darkened window. "But maybe I've been searching for something that's been here all along." I leaned in and kissed the crown of his head, slow, deliberate, full of all the words I didn't know how to say. "You don't have to search anymore," I whispered. His arms came around me slowly, then firmly as he rested his head against my shoulder. It echoed how he used to curl into me as a boy. But this wasn't a child's hug. This was something different, now the embrace of equals of two souls, carrying pain and choosing to share the weight, instead of bearing it alone. We stayed like that for a long time. There was no urgency to let go, no clock ticking against us. Eventually we moved to the bed, not to sleep, not to escape, but to simply lie side by side. We didn't touch. Not yet. But the air between us vibrated with understanding, with something that felt ancient and entirely new. "Do you think people would understand this?" he asked. I turned my head toward him, his face barely lit by the soft glow of the bedside lamp. "Maybe not," I said. "But just because others don't understand doesn't mean it's wrong." He nodded gently, his eyelids drooping. His breathing slowed into that soft rhythm of surrender. I lay beside him, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. And something inside me shifted. A quiet knowing, a strange peace. I wasn't ready for the night. He asked me to stay in his room. I wasn't prepared for how it would change me. But sometimes it's the moments we don't plan for, the ones that slip in quietly when we aren't looking, that bring us home, to ourselves, to each other. I don't know what's waiting ahead. Maybe it's not ours to know. Maybe all we're meant to hold on to is this closeness, this honest, aching, unshaped beauty we found not when we chased it, but when we finally stopped and listened to the silence between us. And for now, that's enough. And for now, that's enough. The quiet held us like a lullaby. Not the kind sung with words, but the kind hummed in presence, the kind that says, "You're not alone." I lay there next to Ethan, not touching, but feeling every inch of the space between us, charged with something unspoken, yet deeply understood. In that soft stillness, I wasn't a mother, he wasn't a son. We weren't roles or expectations. We were simply two souls, weathered by time and truth, finally daring to be seen fully vulnerably, honestly. Outside, the world continued spinning. Traffic lights blinked through the fog. Somewhere, someone laughed. Somewhere else, someone cried. But in that room, beneath the glow of the aging lamp, time folded. There was no yesterday to regret, no tomorrow to prepare for. Just this moment, suspended, like dust in a shaft of golden light. Ethan shifted, not to pull away, but to get closer. Still respectful, still careful. His voice was barely a breath. "Promise me something." I turned toward him, my eyes already answering before my mouth could. "Anything. Promise me we won't pretend this never happened." I swallowed. That ache in my throat again, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of being understood. "I promise," I whispered, and in that promise, something was born. Not a new beginning exactly. Not a tidy resolution, but a blooming, a new way of seeing, of being, a deeper way of loving. One that doesn't fit into neat categories or storybook pages. We didn't sleep right away. We stayed there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the creaks of the old house and the rhythm of our breaths. At some point, his fingers brushed mine again. Not asking for more, not seeking permission, just a quiet echo of connection. I let our hands rest there together, not clutching, not forcing, just being. I don't know where this path leads. I don't even know if it's a path at all, or just a shared clearing in the middle of two tangled forests. But I do know there's something sacred happened in that silence. Something real. And however the world might name it or refuse to, I will carry it in me, always. Not as a shame, not as a secret, but as a small, shining truth. A memory etched in softness, in warmth, in courage. Sometimes love doesn't knock. It doesn't ask for permission. It just appears in the ache of longing, in the hush of a tired room, in the spaces we never thought could hold it. And sometimes, when we are brave enough to stop running, we find that we were already home.